Welcome to the IVF Abroad podcast for people who are struggling with infertility and trying to conceive, and who are facing more obstacles than options when it comes to having fertility testing or treatment in their home countries. Alongside other experts, I will share, educate and empower you on your journey and help you to learn more about going abroad for advanced fertility testing and treatments like IVF and egg donation. I'm Emma Haslam, your host, now mum of one, and the go-to expert in fertility treatment abroad. Since the birth of our son in 2018, I have made it my mission to make fertility treatment more informed, transparent, accessible, supported and affordable for more people. And I help people just like you to become unstuck, to find a best fit clinic that truly meets their needs, and to have fertility treatment on their terms and timescales so they can achieve their dreams of growing their families. And I'm here now to help you too. Be sure to check out the free resources in the show notes for more help after listening to today's episode. Hello, hi, and welcome to a new episode of the IVF Abroad podcast with me, your host and infertile mum of one, Emma Haslam. So, unexplained infertility. I'm not sure how in 2025 people are still told they have unexplained infertility, because I just don't think that that is acceptable. Unexplained means unexplored, or not explored enough, or not explored with the right people. And it happens all the time. And I want to help you to understand more about this and what you can do about it. Have you ever been told that everything looks fine? There is nothing wrong. But actually, you're still just not getting pregnant. Or you're getting pregnant and you're having losses. This, honestly, it's hard to put an exact figure on it, but I reckon at least 40% of the people that I work with have been told something similar, which is outrageous, because there will be a reason, but it just means that person doesn't know. Or perhaps you are dealing with the NHS and they can only do what they can do. We understand that. And it's a way of kind of sending people on their way. But likely with no further help, support or guidance. And it isn't helpful to say to people, everything looks fine, because then actually people are maybe going away thinking, okay, everything's fine. We'll just keep trying longer. And more time gets wasted and energy. And when we feel the kind of beating heart of the ticking clock of our fertility, this just isn't fair. And it's grossly inaccurate as well. And how frustrating it is to be told that you have unexplained infertility. It is given like it is a diagnosis in itself. And as I said earlier, I think it's given when either there isn't the kind of funding there through the NHS for further testing or the right testing, or you're with a clinic that doesn't have it within its capabilities to do the right kind of tests. So they just say you have unexplained infertility. And that kind of, by saying that, a doctor saying that or a medical professional saying that, it almost is a bit like, so you're fine, go away, we keep trying. But, the frustration and the emotional toll that takes on people is huge, because people just feel stuck, because they're like no further forward, they're in limbo, they don't know what the problem is or problems are, and that's not helping them to have a baby. And lots of those people end up coming to work with me because this is what they've been told. Maybe they've gone away and they've tried naturally for longer, and then they get to the point where they're like, what are we doing? This is just not working, and time is ticking on, and it has a huge impact on these people in terms of their like mental health. And when you're stuck in this, how awful it is when you're in the limbo bit and nothing's happening. That, to me, was my worst bit when we were trying to conceive. The other thing that people hear is it's your weight, and then they lose the weight, and then it's still not happening because, do you know what? In my experience, again, from the people I've worked with and through my own experience, it's never actually about the weight. And then, people reduce their weight and then see that actually it wasn't about the weight. It's about something else, but that can be given alongside unexplained infertility. If there's anybody with a higher BMI, often people will say, it's unexplained, but it's probably your BMI. Again, in my experience, grossly inaccurate as well. So I wanted to come and talk to you about this topic because it affects such a huge amount of people, I think. And really, unexplained infertility doesn't always mean that there isn't anything else going on. It just means that it hasn't been explored properly, hasn't been explored enough. The current testing, if any, that's been done hasn't found the cause. But in my experience of working with people with unexplained infertility, there is something going on, and it's a case of finding it. And, there are underlying issues that often have been missed, perhaps because they haven't been tested or haven't had the right tests. So there can be things like egg quality issues. There can be issues around, so you get pregnant easily, but there are issues around carrying that pregnancy long term. That could be sometimes things like immune issues. There can be things like sperm DNA fragmentation, things that perhaps a standard baseline semen analysis hasn't picked up. Egg and sperm are 50-50 part of this equation, but more often than not, female side of things are looked at in far more detail than men's across the board at a lot of clinics. There can be issues around the uterine lining. There can be things like fibroids and polyps and things going on in the cavity of your uterus that you're not aware of. I mentioned before that there can be things like immune factor issues that could be bubbling away in the background that you've got no idea about, which are making it impossible for you to get pregnant or impossible for you to have a full-term pregnancy. There can be hormonal imbalances. There can be things like subtle endometriosis. There can be structural things. Like I had a client that had a cervix that was effectively closed, and so therefore, no matter what, IVF would never have worked. Never, never, never. But now, actually, that puts them in a position where they could end up falling pregnant naturally. I had another client who did fall pregnant naturally after having some structural work done, if you like. Sounds like I'm discussing a house build, but something structural that they discovered, were able to fix, and therefore this couple became pregnant within 6 months of trying post-discovering that. So, sometimes the benefit of getting unexplained infertility explained means that people can avoid IVF altogether. And I've had a handful of clients where this has been the case, that they've been able to swerve IVF and save themselves loads of money and heartache and hassle, etc. So there are lots of things. There can be things like infections. There can be things like vitamin D levels can be very low. Like literally a whole host of things. And it's not always big and expensive things to fix or time-consuming things to fix either. But usually the sort of standard level of testing that a clinic requires for consultation treatment is very basic. But when you kind of get to the point where perhaps you've been trying for a long time and things haven't been happening, or you've had multiple failed cycles of IVF and things aren't happening for you, then what we don't want to be doing is continuing to do the same thing that we've done before, because we're going to get the same results. And we put our trust in medical professionals to lead us on this, but actually if they're not the right clinic for you, or not the right clinic for you right now, then, because things have changed and evolved, then it's important at this juncture to go, right, okay, what do we need to do? And to feel confident that you can input into your own treatment and what you would like to try, perhaps before moving ahead to treatment at all or moving ahead to any more treatment. This sort of strain of being told everything's normal but still facing negative results like month after month is really, really hard. And I think it's doing people a massive disservice. You know, it's wasting your time. It's potentially wasting your money if you are having repeated cycles of IVF without anything really changing. And it's also the energy and the drain on your life. And you deserve answers because the answers are there, but, you know, can be found and need to be found with the right clinic. And I think, you know, the UK fertility system has its limitations. So, as I mentioned and touched on a little bit earlier, the NHS can only give you the testing that it can give you. So that is very, very limited. And there can be long waits for things anyway. But even privately, to kind of get a real deep level of testing that you might need, that can take a while and can really add up as well in terms of costs, and can be quite difficult to coordinate everything together. And to even know what to choose to test in the first place is difficult and needs that medical input and guidance from the right person. And I wish people knew this. I wish people knew that if they have been having multiple failed cycles of IVF or multiple losses or been trying for a long time and never really had anything but basic testing, I wish they would know that there are options around further testing and it's okay to get second opinions. And I say this pretty much every single episode of the podcast, I know, but the importance of getting the right clinic and treatment plan matters so much on the then end result. And maybe your next step isn't IVF or another round of IVF. Maybe actually it's stopping and saying, okay, what we want to do is get to the bottom of, or what I want to do, what we want to do is to get to the bottom of this unexplained infertility and get some answers before we then decide on any next steps. And I think by going abroad with the right clinic, you opening the door to more speed, more options around different tests and things that are available. And in my experience, more coordinated, tailored care and faster answers, which we all want. So I want to encourage you to advocate for yourself and to question your clinic if you're with one currently and you don't feel actually like you are getting anywhere, nothing's really changing and they're not making any real suggestions about what could be done differently. To challenge them on that and to consider whether this is the time to be thinking about going elsewhere. You know, do you need to consider a specialist clinic? If you haven't been in touch with any clinics yet and you are at the juncture of perhaps moving from the NHS to private care, or you've been trying naturally, maybe you don't qualify for the NHS, maybe you're in a country where you don't have an NHS and you're like, right, no, I want to move to a fertility clinic privately for the first time. But actually, we've been trying for a long time and we really want to do some more advanced testing. Then you need to be thinking about a specialist clinic for that. And, you know, you don't have to do this alone. You can get my help with this if you need my help with this. I'll pop an email address in the show notes. You can get in touch if you need to. I've got a free training that would be really helpful to you to learn more about going abroad for fertility treatment and how that works. I'm going to drop that in the show notes as well for you too. But either way, I just want you to stop and think and kind of assess your current situation and think, where am I? Where are we? Have you been told this? What help and support and guidance have you been given? What's your next move? And really consider what that next move is. Because honestly, unexplained doesn't mean impossible. I know it can feel that way. And when you're just kind of sent off by a doctor or a medical professional, having been told that, you kind of have two schools of thought. One, which is, oh, it's going to be all right and we'll just keep trying. And then it doesn't generally happen. Or people just feel even more lost and stuck and confused. And that's an awful place to be. And, you know, you can take this into your own hands and be like, right, no, that's not good enough. We need a change of direction. So, yeah, I just wanted to leave you with, I suppose, that last thought of unexplained doesn't mean impossible. Sometimes it's some really easy, quick fixes. And sometimes it's not. But actually getting answers and understanding things is so much more helpful. And you are then moving in the right direction of getting things sorted prior to then having potentially fertility treatment like IVF. You might not need IVF, but if you do, then you can go into treatment knowing that you've dotted the I's, you've crossed the T's, and that things have been hopefully able to move much quicker. And by going abroad, you know, if you get the speed, you get better costs on things, then you're not just stuck around waiting or spending unnecessary money here in the UK. But clinic fit is super important. And as time moves on, perhaps your needs now are different to what your needs were when you first got with your clinic. Sounds like a date, doesn't it? But when you first, if you're with an IVF clinic, or if you are with an IVF NHS clinic, maybe you stayed with them for private treatment, you learn stuff as you go along. Like every cycle of IVF is both therapeutic and diagnostic. So we learned things, and you learned things, and you've been in this cycle longer. You've maybe spent more money, or you're about to start spending money on this. And so your needs when looking for a clinic back then and your knowledge when looking for a clinic back then might be completely different to what they're at now. But if we keep doing the same things, we're going to keep getting the same results. And I say that with love because I want you to know that it's okay to change clinic, and it's okay to say we feel, or I feel, that actually more needs to be done around testing, even if your clinic doesn't agree. Perhaps that clinic hasn't got the capabilities to give you what you need, and that's why they're saying they don't agree. So lots of food for thought there. But if you do need help with it, reach out on email and I can help you to find a clinic where you can get all of this done quickly at great prices and get some answers quickly too. If you want to learn more about going abroad for fertility treatment, for things like Unexplained Infertility, how things work, if you haven't already, do go and watch my free video training. It's going to tell you loads more about what you need to know and really help. I will pop that again in the show notes for you, and I will see you for another episode next week. Bye. If you are facing more obstacles than options and want to learn more about how to overcome your fertility testing and treatment challenges in your home country so that you too can fast track to growing your family and on your terms, then check out my free training at yourivfabroad.co.uk/free masterclass. Don't forget to rate and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and so that I can reach and help more people. Thanks for